Hi, this is Dr. Kimberley Linert, and you're listening to Incredible Life Creator Podcast. My guest today is KK Diaz. KK Diaz is a 41-year-old South African business and digital transformation strategist and 5-time author. He's been an entrepreneur since he was 9 years old and has seen the best and worst of it. It was primarily his personal failure in business that inspired him to start a consulting business in order to help small business entrepreneurs and large businesses to implement innovative strategies for growth. Welcome to the podcast, KK.
Thanks, Kimberly. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Wonderful to meet you.
Yeah, so excited to have you here and hear about the projects you're doing and how you're making a difference in the world. So why don't we just start out by you telling us a little bit about you, where you grew up and how you started out and how you got to be where you are today.
Thank you very much. So I always wonder what's going to be the best way to create context for people who don't necessarily have an idea of what Africa and South Africa specifically looks like. So I always have to remember that not everybody has context. So I'm from one of the most rural areas in this country. At least that's where I was born. I was born in the north. The province is called Limpopo province. Wow, it's been such a long time ago, obviously. And I was born on a farm, and the farm was called ZZ Diaz Citrus Farm. It's actually, it used to be one of the largest citrus farms in the Southern Hemisphere. It used to export and provide, oranges and lemons to so much of the world. So a lot of people might be familiar with that, with the name at least. We had some of the sweetest oranges ever. And unfortunately, that's kind of taken a turn for the worst because of the people who are running the commercial aspect of the farm. But that's a conversation for another time. So I was born out of wedlock, but my parents did eventually get married, and then 3 years later we moved to a different province where I grew up and got to learn a completely different language from my mother tongue at the time. And and then when I was 8, we moved to live with my aunt. My aunt lived in a 2-room. Literally, it was just a house made of just 2 rooms, a kitchen and a lounge and 1 bedroom. And she had 4 kids. She had recently gotten divorced, so it was a bit of a mess at the time. And it's always funny when you're a kid and you grow up in an environment, you don't see that you actually are poor or you're disadvantaged, so to speak. So that was interesting. A few months later, after having moved there, my cousin and I decided to sell sweets in the primary school. And that's really where the entrepreneur in me kind of came alive. And 8, 9, and every other year after that, we would start something that's a little bit more sophisticated, whether it's T-shirts or selling bags or cologne and so forth. So it just progressed and progressed. And when so I have to say that I kind of moved to 2 places when I was 8, 9. My mother was going to teachers college. So we didn't have anybody to look after us while the family had moved to Johannesburg. And so I needed to go and stay with my aunt somewhere else. So during school holidays, we would go back to Johannesburg where my dad was based, and my mother would come from school holidays. And that's really where I guess I learned about business and not knowing it was entrepreneurship until 10 years later, which was strange. And therefore, one of the things that I'm addressing in society is, to start teaching the young about business early on, as early as possible, because going back to what I said earlier, context is so important. When you have context, you have a better way of dealing with challenges and taking full advantage of the opportunities. So in a nutshell, that's really my life story. I went to college, dropped out of college, didn't complete my college degree for various reasons. One of them is I was just really bored with college. But then there were also opportunities that I was keen to pursue at the time, which I did. And one of them ended up working for Sage as a technology consultant. So in a nutshell, yeah.
Right. So what are you doing now?
So I run a small outfit, a consultancy that specializes in innovative business strategies and digital transformation. We help small, medium enterprises and large businesses to implement strategies, and to train their people to meet the demands of those new strategies, and to empower the business and the people who work within that business with digital technology and just about all the tools they need in order to be well equipped so they can execute on that strategy. And as you can imagine, it can range anywhere from from a traditional brick and mortar business to a highly sophisticated technology-based business. And that's really one of the things that I'm privileged, and I feel so blessed to have such a wide just breadth of experiences and initiatives and projects I can get myself involved in. So I'm hardly ever bored, actually, ever. Yeah.
Big difference from college.
Yes, which I appreciate.
Yes, I think a lot of people find themselves in that situation when they're in a classroom. So
yeah, true.
and sometimes out doing action is much more fun. So
Definitely.
So when you're talking about helping people with their digital, what are you talking about specifically? Are you talking about their marketing, their social media?
So yes, those are some of the components of digital transformation, so to speak. However, a big part of what we do, we find that what you mentioned are kind of in the periphery and almost expected, so to speak, right? And depending on the size of the campaigns, we may outsource it, but internally we do have digital marketing facilities and capacity. But the digital transformation that I'm referring to is really about taking an old way of providing value to customers, infusing it with digital technology such that it'll meet the customer's expectations now in as far as how they look for products, how they find those products, how they purchase them, and how they consume them. Right? You'll find that a lot of that is now driven by digital technology. And so we are helping businesses to adapt and meet those expectations and the use of their technology so that the businesses and the customers are on the same wavelength. They use the same tools for communication, technology, and for requesting for products and services and actually receiving them. So we're helping to build that bridge or that platform that enables companies to be current and to be relevant, and to find ways of innovating the existing value propositions into ones that are relevant. Considering where we are today with COVID-19, a lot of that is driven by digital technology, and a lot of businesses, unfortunately, are trailing, are failing in as far as quickly adopting and adapting. And so that's why we're here. But we've been doing this for a few years. I guess we're one of those companies that have kind of, in a better position than most in as far as what we do being in demand. But it's also, limited by the understanding and the appreciation of the people we are selling our services to. So that's really what we do and where we find ourselves right now.
I'm wondering if some business owners, especially the small business owners, where they built their business on personal, face-to-face or at least phone contact, very close relationship with their clients. Do you get a lot of pushback on that where they're like, yeah, we know we need to go digital, but we're afraid to lose that personal touch?
That's a loaded question and a pertinent question. We found ourselves where we find ourselves now, and as far as our ability to translate value hasn't changed that much, because there was always a smaller percentage of businesses that appreciated the use and the integration of digital technology in their business, right? Looking forward. And so that small number, we still find that it's still that very small number that is still in a position to say, okay, we've been thinking about this for these many years, and we've clearly, we have an idea of where we could go. All right, KK and your team, now let's go. Let's actually do it. That's a small number, considering how many businesses are actually not able to do that as a result of constrained cash flow, lack of resources. They themselves are in a position where they don't have as much business anymore. So the ability to actually, go on the journey, start and accelerate their journey towards digital transformation has been challenged and constrained as a result. And then you find the other businesses that have to completely reinvent from the ground up. right? And so the numbers are unfortunately similar, where 80% of them are just not going to do it because, number one, they're afraid,
Mm-hmm.
right? They are shamed by needing to now start something new, i.e., now they need to explain what happened to the old business. And we have a country, a culture in our country where shame is a big thing for us, i.e., we are afraid of being shamed by others, coming across as failures. And so that also inhibits the extent at which people would be willing to take up the challenge of becoming digitally transformed or re-establishing your business to a point where it will look like a completely new business. And so, yeah, we're finding we have to deal with that a lot, motivate and inspire people and encourage them to really take this on. I think more than that, the rest of the battle is really within, and that's not necessarily what our business does. We do appreciate that aspect of business and life. And that's why we partner with certain people at certain companies to be able to do that. But the idea of personal touch, it's a little challenging right now, considering one's business needs to be scalable. It needs to be able to be flexible and adaptable, i.e., can you really spread yourself that thin if you're just one person and you've probably had to let go of people who used to help you to provide that value to your customers.
Mm-hmm. So let's say there's a business in that situation where they either need to reinvent or at least go digital. What are some of the first steps they should be looking at?
Education. It's information, first and foremost. I think look up things like business model innovation. Okay. Look at how to adapt your value proposition in a digital age. Look up examples. Look at how similar companies like the ones you are in as far as industry is concerned, how have they evolved themselves? And therefore, borrow, steal, whatever ideas you can, obviously within ethics, right? I'm saying it with inverted commas. Go out there and find ideas that already exist and see how you can optimize on those ideas. I think that's where it starts. But the same thing that I tell, the most successful leaders right now, or those who have been, is allow yourself to be vulnerable and go out and find help. That's first and foremost, right? Not all business people, actually a great majority of business people are technically inclined in as far as their products and services are concerned, but not necessarily how to digitally evolve their business. So they need to seek out assistance and support in as far as that's concerned. And it's about asking for help first, not necessarily committing yourself until you have enough information and knowledge. So that's really where I'd suggest they start. And we are accessible globally. So feel free to call KK. I'll leave my details with you, and they should feel free with no obligation to speak to me. I'd be more than happy to send them in the right direction, so to speak.
Wonderful. So you have had many businesses along the way. What is your perspective on entrepreneurship?
So, I could write a whole book on this perspective. I've written two before on entrepreneurship, but now that perspective has evolved, and obviously with the times that we are in now, even greater context has kind of emanated from that. One of them is, I think, as a society and also the media and government, we've done a terrible job of talking to people about entrepreneurship. I think we've been irresponsible in the way that we are asking people to start businesses. Number one is because there's so much failure in business, right? And we are telling people to start this journey, but we're not preparing them properly, right? We're not preparing them. So my perspective on entrepreneurship is we need to stop telling people to start businesses. And here's the kicker. People like you and I were never told to start businesses. We just did, right? Or when we did start, it wasn't because somebody suggested, hey, you should start a business. You should be an entrepreneur. It's because entrepreneurs know they are entrepreneurs inherently, and they will start those businesses. And so we need to stop channeling the wrong people to start businesses when they shouldn't, because they're not as equipped. A great majority, about 80% of businesses at the end of the day do fail. Yes, for various reasons, but one of them is because I think we are prematurely and irresponsibly telling everybody to start a business. I think part of that message needs to change to go and find an entrepreneur, i.e., if you want to start a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, go and find somebody with an existing business and go and sell them something. Go and see how you can add value to their existing business and join that business. Because one of the biggest reasons businesses fail is because we just don't have enough of a wide area. We don't cover enough, wide enough skills to help that business to succeed.
Mm.
So those are kind of my high level perspective on entrepreneurship. And I think we need to truly understand who we are. I know this is difficult, knowing what your purpose is prior to you starting your business, but it's really about knowing as much as possible about who you are and as far as what it is that you'd like to do with your life, what your passions are, what your strengths and weaknesses are, prior to starting a business. And maybe that's the irresponsible part, is we don't tell entrepreneurs or those who want to go into business that those are the important aspects and criteria that one needs to address before they start a business.
Exactly. So many people just look at it and say, well, where am I going to get the biggest bang as far as financial?
Yeah.
But their heart isn't in it. They're not maybe even interested in what that is. And I think chasing the money never does really help. You always have to have your heart in it. You have to have have a purpose.
And that's why people would stop. That's why somebody would stop running or pursuing a particular goal in the business, because they see that they can get money quicker somewhere else. And so they stop here, they jump into the next one. And also that I think to some extent motivates people to get involved in unethical practices, because what they're chasing is that money and not necessarily to provide the value that they could through their business. Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And is there, how do people find their purpose? How do you figure out what's my talent? Which kind of, let's say, I feel like, yeah, I'd love to be an entrepreneur, but how do I find that place?
That is a difficult question to answer. The best I can do is provide at least guidance based on how we help people who've maybe already made the decision that they want to be entrepreneurs. And therefore we help them to discover their purpose. And I think that is, I don't know if that's the right word, but to discover, we mean you make the decision. You choose your purpose. You choose your purpose. Your purpose doesn't choose you, right? You have to ultimately say, no, this is what I'm going to do with the rest of my life, right? Because it's this level, it's this important to me. These are the reasons why it's important to me, and choose and be, have so much conviction in that decision that you would have made that nothing will shake you. Nothing will shake your position on that particular stance that you've made. So I'll try and go back and answer the question. One of the ways that, I've at a very high level that we've been suggesting that people look at finding or discovering their purpose. Number one is for context, right? So let me share a little bit of context around the definition of maybe the word itself, if that's going to help. And let me start with passion, if that's fine, because sometimes I think we confuse purpose and passion. So the word passion actually doesn't mean much, except that it means having an emotion that is so powerful that you can barely control it. That's really what passion is. And so the question is, what are you passionate about in your life? And I'll come back to that. So we have passion and then we have purpose. But on the other hand, we also have something called purpose, which is, I believe, maybe more important, because purpose speaks to the reason something exists, the reason you are pursuing the business, or the reason you are involved in the career that you've chosen, or the reason why you wake up every day to go to work and do what you do. Mm-hmm. I'll try and connect those two. So passion is really something that gives you energy, that gives you the will to continue, that energizes you whenever you are facing a particular, maybe a problem, opportunities, or a game you may be playing, or a set of activities that you may be actioning. Purpose without passion will not take you far, right? It will not take shape, so to speak. So if your passion is, for example, is to build a community of people who look after single women, for example, we have a high rate of of gender-based violence in this country. And so if one finds that their purpose would be to look after, say abused women or abused single mothers, so to speak, or disadvantaged single mothers, as something one chooses to be their purpose, i.e. they would like to build a shelter of some sort. Without passion, if that is something you're not passionate about, that purpose will not take shape at all. It's not going to go anywhere. But if you find that the things that you are building your purpose around, you are also passionate about those things, the passion will give you that much juice. It will put the gas in your tank so that you can do what you need to do and keep going even when things get tough. And so understanding purpose is not just for entrepreneurs, but it's also for people who, employ people. So if you're looking for a job, it's equally important to understand what it is that you'd like to fulfill in your life through your job. And therefore, that is the business that you work for, does it share the same purpose, or is it aligned to some extent? Or can you feel that what your purpose is, does it not contradict what the company's purpose is? And that's partly why you find a lot of people are so disengaged in their job, because you'll find that, purpose is not aligned. What the company is trying to achieve, maybe the company is just, like we said earlier, is just pursuing money, finances. If it's just all about profits and you are pursuing a particular purpose on the other hand, you may find you end up disengaging from the company in general, purely not because you can't do the job, but because the sentiments of why you are both involved or in partnership, it just doesn't mix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you also touched on the idea of talent, which is completely different, right? I always go back to something. The Malcolm, the leadership expert. I forget his name. It'll come back now. He says, you find when you watch Idols or similar programs, you can see how passionate some people are about that particular vocation or job or singing.
Uh-huh.
But when they try and sing, they're not talented, right? So passion and talent are not necessarily the same thing, or they don't necessarily need to be of the same thing for you to get involved in say a particular industry. So I'm just highlighting the idea of talent. Talent is really about your ability to do something. Now, you could have the ability to do something, but you may not necessarily be passionate about it, which goes back to one of the reasons that I quit my, at least the degree I was pursuing at the time. It was in accounting and finance. I was good at it, but I didn't have the passion for it. Mm-hmm. But it was important for me to understand, if I had a talent in that space, so that I can pursue either a career in that space or start a business in that industry, so to speak. So I think those three are critical. To answer the question that you actually asked is, how do you go about finding that? There are psychometric tests and there are strength finders and a whole set of tools out there that one can find. But I'll always say, speak to a career guidance counselor. Speak to somebody who specializes in helping people, find or establish amazing careers. Go and speak to somebody like that. And if I'm not mistaken, Kimberley, I think you're one of those people who they could speak to about that, and take it from there. Really find out how do you know your strengths and your weaknesses, find your talent, find what you're passionate about, and just channel all of that towards the purpose that you may have discovered for yourself. And without going on for longer on this point, let me stop here, and if there's anything to continue on around purpose, I could add one or two other things.
Okay. Well, actually, I wanted to ask you about your books. So you've written 5 books.
Yes, I have.
So why did you write the books, and what did you write them about?
So I think first and foremost, I really wrote the books for myself, to kind of document all of these things that I'd been learning. And I'll share with you as much as possible in as far as what were the specific reasons for each one of them. As somebody who's been involved in business for as long as I have, and have had the privilege of working with just so much industry and so many different businesses at different stages of their lives, I learned so much, right, that it really helped me a lot in the line of work that I'm in, which is primarily consulting and coaching. And so when I started writing what I thought was going to be my first book, I was documenting the best practices that I had learned, and I was learning within the context, but outside as well, borrowing international concepts, seeing how they can fit in within a local context, and then applying them from there on. However, while I was doing that, I then got an opportunity to climb on Kilimanjaro, which I took with both, it was an opportunity that I grabbed with both hands. And the journey really taught me, and it made me truly understand my purpose, which is something I won't go too much into because it's in the book. So for those who want to read it, they can get the book. It's on Amazon. It's about $1, I believe, on Amazon. It's called The Climb. So the reason I climbed Kilimanjaro, at least one of them, was to inspire young people or people who felt hopeless, didn't know what to do in order to achieve goals, and they were demotivated, uninspired, or even if they were inspired, they just didn't know how to go about achieving their goals. Mm-hmm. And so I then said to myself, I'm going to apply all of these principles that I teach people about business, how to go for the biggest, revenue targets, et cetera, that whatever it is that they're pursuing in business, how can I teach them in a life context? And a lot of them was really about starting new divisions or starting new businesses from scratch. And I said, okay, because a lot of two of the biggest excuses or reasons people don't pursue their goals is because they either feel they don't have money or they don't have experience. So I said to myself, I will use this as an opportunity to achieve to summit the mountain, the mountain and use that as my goal. Mm-hmm. And I won't use my own money. And it's obviously something I'd never done before. So for those who say they don't have experience, they don't have money, I'm going to show you how I can apply these principles in pursuing this goal. To cut the long story short, I summited, and when I came back, one of my coaches, Anel Bester at the time, one of the first exercises she gave me, she said, congratulations on having summited the Mount Kilimanjaro, but now you're going to need to share your story with the rest of the world and how you did it. And that's how my first book came about. So we then pushed the business book aside, and in a space of about just under a month, we wrote The Climb, and it was easy to happen under a month because I'd been documenting the entire journey, pursuing sponsors, looking for sponsorships, and carving and defining a value proposition that was going to enable me to raise the funds, and obviously the training, getting prepared, being mentored by others, because I myself was a newbie in the space. I knew nothing about climbing mountains. Even though I was born in a rural area, I did grow up in the city. So I was born, in a rural place, but grew up in a completely different one. So I needed to be taught what it was like to grow to climb mountains. Anyway, we packaged the story. The first book is out, and the first book really teaches me about life and how to pursue goals and how to teach others about these things. So that was the first book. The second book, which was supposed to have been the first book, was really about putting together or building a methodology to help people to grow a business. It's called the A-Game Business Blueprint. And it was really about me taking all of these lessons, these best practices that I'd learned and experiences, I infused them into a methodology which hundreds of entrepreneurs have used in the country to grow their businesses, which I'm, will always be proud of. And then the books that follow on are really a subset of that methodology. So that methodology is a holistic methodology. It speaks to purpose, passion, and business model innovation and strategy. And then it also speaks to marketing and sales. It speaks to process, people development, culture. And so those other books are really subsets of that. Hence digital marketing being one of our divisions and one of the areas that we focus in business. So in a nutshell, really, those are my reasons for writing and sharing those books.
Yeah. And in case people don't know, if you don't know about climbing Kilimanjaro,
Yes.
You think, oh, you're just going to climb it. No, there's people who, there's so much emotional piece to that. And not only that, but safety. If as you're climbing, you don't breathe properly, if you don't have the correct equipment, that's when people died. A lot of people died climbing Kilimanjaro.
So true. That is so true. And I guess one of the reasons why people don't pursue it, that's, it is scary. I was equally scared as well. But and this is why the importance of purpose. My purpose was bigger than me, was bigger than my own personal life. It was really about um, you know sharing with others how they can achieve their greatest goals, their greatest life goals. And so I was then willing to risk my own life in order to pursue that purpose. And yes, you're right. It's really about preparation. It's about training. It's about listening and not pretending you know what you're doing, right? And being clear on it, because the stakes are so high. The risks that you take could result in your life ending, right? If you're going to be irresponsible or not as careful as you need to be. So you're 100% right on that.
Yeah. And as you were climbing that mountain, do you think you applied any of that to your leadership skills? Or
You know, it's both it's both funny and serious, this whole journey that I went on. And to answer your question, there's a way that I'm gonna speak to it prior to the journey and during, as well as post. So it obviously had to, and this is one of the principles, it had to take personal leadership for me to be on the journey. If I didn't have an ability to lead myself first and foremost before I can lead others, I wouldn't have taken on the challenge. I wouldn't have had the courage and the opportunity to apply my courage, whether it was asking for sponsorships, whether it was intending to climb the mountain itself. I had to lead myself first. So I got to learn a lot about, hey, I actually, these are aspects and components of who I am as an individual. And in order for me to do the things that I want to do, I have to be able to lead myself. So there was a big kind of light bulb moment as well, a light bulb event, so to speak. So definitely the journey itself helped me become a better leader of myself before I could lead others. And equally, in leading others or guiding others, let me use the word guide, in guiding others on defining your purpose and defining your life's goals, I needed to humble myself and not take advantage, the lessons that I had learned many, many years ago. Humble myself and guide people in a way that was appropriate. It was sensitive enough, i.e., it was empathetic. I mean, all of these emotions or characteristics are really characteristics of a leader. You got to be willing to listen and learn. You got to be willing to take the time and sacrifice your own time to give it to others for the purpose of translating value. Especially if you're all pursuing the same goal, right? And I think we do tend to be willing to share and to lead others when the purpose and the passion is kind of shared, which again, I guess speaks to the importance of being on the same mission, or being on the same page around what we're doing. And then post that, post the trip and the journey and the climb, I realize how much work I actually have to do now as a leader. So much so that, then one of the next books I'm writing, that I've been writing for the last 2 years, and I'm aiming to publish in 2021, is actually a book on leadership. So I am actually working on a book on leadership. It's really been a topic that I'm very conscious of, and I'm always willing to learn and be the best leader I can, and not only in business, but I'm a father of 3, and that is probably one of the most important leadership positions that I've been blessed with, that I need to take a lot more serious and learn even more about, as far as that's concerned.
yeah, that is a huge responsibility that many people have, and it's just so important.
True.
They watch what we do.
Exactly.
Not only what we say, but what we do.
True.
So, as you've gone along the way, have you had any aha moments, or like moments of realization of something you hadn't thought of before?
I think I think there's been quite a few of those, and one of them that I still, even as an adult, that I still struggle with, but that tends to have its events and seasons. Sometimes it'll come back and it'll hit me, and it'll hit me hard, is that we don't live in a perfect world. All right. So that's one of them, is that for the longest times I've had to accept that we don't live in a perfect world. And therefore I'm not perfect. And in not being perfect, there's only so much I can do, as a kid. And I don't know how many kids grow up thinking or believing that they are superheroes, that they can save the world. I think that's one of the things that I've needed to learn and accept, right? That I can't save everyone. Okay. But in having discovered that as a light bulb moment, I could only draw inspiration from people like Nelson Mandela, draw inspiration from from others. Dr. Thandile Ndlovu, who unfortunately is now late, she passed on in a car accident last year. She was one of the biggest players and contributors in assisting me to summit Kilimanjaro, i.e. she was a highly successful entrepreneur, a construction business owner, female construction business owner in the country, one of the top. And so I drew inspiration from people like them to understand that, yes, there are times when I feel hopeless and helpless, that I can't save everyone. I've come to accept that, but I'm obligated to have a purposeful life that is going to contribute not only to my own fulfillment, but in helping educate others and in helping others to become the best versions of themselves. And I wake up every day pursuing that I may not be able to do all of these wonderful things that I can do, but I can do the little bit every day to add to somebody else's life. And that is probably the single biggest light bulb moment, I think, for me. And it has led to me letting go of so much pressure and so much stress, and being conscious of the fact that I need to live a purposeful life. And it starts with taking care of family, taking care of communities, and then nations, and bigger and greater from there on.
Beautiful. So I know you have a project that you're working on where you are doing some contribution to the community. You want to talk about that?
Thank you. So one of the things that happened as a result of climbing Mount Kilimanjaro was I was inspired to start an initiative called Entrepreneurs for Positive Change. And it's been very slow over the last couple of years. I mean, it's 6-7 years now since I'd climbed Kili. But I came back saying to myself, every year or every 2 years, we're going to start a new initiative that we can take back to grassroots levels or to communities, disadvantaged communities, and actually help them to grow, help them live a life of dignity. And one of the things that we do is teach entrepreneurship and digital skills within prisons, and not just for purpose of just teaching people, but it's also about reducing recidivism. We have one of the highest recidivism rates in the world, actually, in our country. And so these are the initiatives that Entrepreneurs for Positive Change used to address. However, that initiative is now slowly in the process of becoming a nonprofit organization. So I've been blessed to have had colleagues and friends who've always witnessed me, at least on my own, doing this. And some of them were always doing all of these fancy, wonderful, community development projects. And now we've come together to formalize this under a nonprofit organization, which I'm very excited about. And I've been asked to lead this institution. We're still in the process of finalizing names, but the projects are ongoing. Some of the things that we're going to look at is how to help communities to start vegetable gardens that can then be used to source, supplies to the next level of the value chain, whether that's vegetables or bread making and bread baking. We're going to take all of these skills, infuse them, and take them back to the townships, to the communities, and actually help them, be able to feed themselves. I think that's where it starts. We have thousands and thousands of if not millions, I bet you it's in the millions now, actually, millions of people sleeping with no food in their belly, which is, it's an unforgivable sin, I think, for those of us who are privileged and not doing enough. It's not something everybody needs to contribute to, but I feel obligated that I'm one of those that need to contribute to that. And that's what my community, or rather my small community, my small team are working on to establish this nonprofit so we can fill in the gaps. We know there's a lot of people out there that are doing wonderful and amazing things, but we've always had, I guess, a perspective, a slightly different approach to how we address the same problem. And we're going to contribute to wherever we can. But in certain cases where there's nothing happening on the ground, we will start that program from scratch.
That is beautiful. And thank you for all you're doing.
No, thank you. Thanks, Kim. Appreciate it.
So I want to ask a more personal question. For you, what gives you the most joy and happiness and fulfillment in your life?
I don't think anything surpasses being a father, right? Being a father has forced me to pay attention to what's important in life. And I'm also happy that I grew up the way that I did, where I never took advantage of my parents. I never underestimated the blessings that I've had when I was growing up. And so I'm really blessed to have kids who love me the way my kids love me. And sometimes I feel, but like you said, it's a little personal. Sometimes I wonder if I truly deserve it, right? I have to declare that my first marriage didn't work out. And so my kid, who's 16 now, I know he's suffering from that, from the distance, but he's somebody who reaches out and we talk, and he comes to visit, and we see each other a lot, and he's doing amazingly well. And so it fulfills me to know that I'm that responsible to someone like him and my daughter. It fulfills me to appreciate life. It fulfills me to want to contribute not only to the two of them, but to the millions of children out there that don't have the blessings we've had, that don't have the privileges that we've had. And so that in itself fulfills me. And, I phoned my son earlier today, and it filled me up with a feeling of I'm content, right? Right. And it makes me feel that should I not be in a position to breathe as I'm breathing today, that I've done the best that I could as a father. And so again, that fulfills me. And other things that fulfill me, or one other major thing, is really the work that I get to do. And I think it's connected to what I just said. It's really about extending the dignity that I believe I have in my life, extending it to others, through helping them establish their businesses, helping them be able to create the kind of jobs that feed families, where we can collectively protect our communities and obviously do the best that we can. Every day I wake up knowing that I have an opportunity to continue contributing to that. That fulfills me, to the nth degree. And I'm truly grateful that every day I get to do that. And opportunities that come to me tend to be wrapped up in the same kind of packaging. Or if it isn't, I'm able to see it from a distance and say, no, this doesn't fit in my space. This doesn't fit with my purpose. And so I'm able to exclude it. But those that do, just like this invitation to become the lead for this nonprofit, it was clear, because not only do I know what's important to me, I know what my purpose is. And if anything aligns to my purpose, we jump in and we join in and we go ahead. And just on that, it's really like the African proverb says. It says, if you want to go somewhere fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go with others. And it's really about coming together with the people, not only the people that I work with, but for the benefit of the beneficiaries who are in the community, where together we can work together to eradicate, the atrocious violence against women, the crime against society, and really everything else that seems to be working against us and working against our dignity. it's about working together for all of us to make sure we can build a better life for all of us.
Mhm. Thank you. So, if people want to get a hold of you, what's the best way to do that? And anything you want to offer or share on that?
Thank you. So two things I'll say, one of the best ways to get a hold of me, KK Diaz, you simply type KK Diaz within LinkedIn and I will pop up, right? There are very few KK Diaz's on LinkedIn at least. So that's one way of finding me. My website is kkdiaz.com. So that's another easy way. And so again, if you go to LinkedIn and you find me, you'll see more of our business, about our business. The company is called A Game Business, and the website for A Game Business is just that, agamebusiness.com. And on the website is really things like ebooks that we give away. On the homepage, you'll see a link to a free digital transformation book. Simply download that. That will not only give you access to the ebook, but you'll have our contact details, and we'll be in a position to offer you, a lot more of the things that we are able to give at no cost. We've got books on digital marketing and a whole host of other things, and we're always available and willing to connect and just share value.
Yeah, so thank you. And thank you so much for being on the podcast today and all the wisdom you've shared with people. And I just love what you're doing in the community. So thank you.
Thank you, Kimberly. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. So one more question before we get off.
Yep.
What to you makes the most incredible, extraordinary life?
I think never leaving anyone behind, right? I think it's going to be difficult. I know I've been in a position where, there were things that I have for myself and for the family that I have, but knowing that others don't have, the basics, food, shelter, that just breaks my heart. And so I think a beautiful life is when we all know all of us have got the basics in place, and beyond the food and the shelter is education, safety, security. If we can build a world that extends and provides those to people and everyone, regardless of creed, regardless of race, I think we'll live a much more beautiful life.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Kimberly. I appreciate it.